Welcome to Somebody's Mama Podcast,
the podcast where real talk meets the chaotic beauty of modern motherhood.
I'm Kendra.
And I'm Nicole.
And together we're diving deep into the unfiltered truths of navigating life as millennial moms.
Join our community as we share the laughters, tears, and triumphs, discussing everything from diaper dilemmas to relationship realities.
So get ready for a raw and relatable journey through the roller coaster of life and motherhood.
This isn't your typical podcast.
It's an invitation to connect with us, share, and celebrate the messy, marvelous adventure of raising the next generation.
Welcome back to another episode of Somebody's Mama Podcast. Today we have such a fun episode. We're going to be diving into emotional intelligence.
Yes, emotional intelligence is really the heart of a relationship because there's so many different components of it. And today we're going to be breaking down a lot of those components for you guys. And just a little housekeeping, we may be looking down because we do have our notes because we want to give you guys the most accurate definitions, tools, and tips. We really kind of thought this out, so we want to make sure we are giving you guys the best.
Right. Okay. And not just good tips today. We're also going to be tying in Love is Blind into some of our thoughts when it comes to emotional intelligence, because the show, if you haven't watched it, you don't even have to watch the show to know. If you watched it or haven't watched it,
you're
going to get all the tea here. And new episodes are actually coming up. Oh, is this
today? Yeah.
So perfect. We can get you all caught up on the emotional intelligence of the cast, or not the cast, but some of the cast members. Some of the people in particular.
Yeah.
And if you're like us, then you are already knee deep into the craziness of this show.
It's a pretty good season so far.
Yeah.
Like
how they keep outdoing every season.
But last season to me was terrible. I'll only say that because none of the couples worked.
Okay, so word on the street is it was terrible because they had to cut out another couple.
Oh, yeah. I did see that.
It probably was real good.
Because they said a lot went on with that specific couple, but they had to cut it out because of legal reasons and stuff like that.
Yeah, so they had to cut a bunch of scenes because of legal reasons. But the show, it's just like you go on the show and you already know what it's about. So why are you...
Some people, because clearly Clay said that he ain't ever watched it before. I'm like, why would you come on a show like this and you've never seen it before?
And why are you drinking your soup like that?
Oh my gosh. We're going to get to... So we're not going to be breaking down the full episode in this episode, but... the full season in this episode, but we will be touching on some of the key components because it's a good case study for what we're talking about today. So just to start, we're going to start with the definition of emotional intelligence, just in case you guys didn't know.
Yes.
Emotional intelligence is the ability to manage both your own emotions and understand the emotions of the people around you. There are 5 key elements, and we're going to go over some of those elements today. But some of those key elements are self-awareness. And one of the couples that we noticed as just kind of like talking about it, that lacked that self-awareness, I would say within Laura, I think his name is Jeremy.
Oh yeah.
Laura, she lacks self-awareness, or maybe she knows and she just doesn't care, because it seemed like when her family was speaking about her, like they're fully aware how she is, and they were almost kind of like, good luck. Like, if you found somebody who could put up with you, go ahead, girl.
Go ahead and keep them, because she just doesn't, I feel like she doesn't care about other people's feelings.
Yeah.
She really selfish in a lot of ways. Like she has no empathy. She just says what she says and hopes for the best. And I feel like she tries to act like she's sarcastic or she has sarcasm.
Yeah.
But it's like, you have no self-awareness of what you're saying and the impact of what you're saying.
Right. And she just kind of like downplays it. Yeah. She downplays it within her relationship, but also with the girls. So if you guys watched already, the scene where they were on the beach and all the couples were out there, and she goes, or her husband, or her guy, Jeremy, he goes and spills the beans about things that she said, no pun intended with the bean dip. But so they have that whole little situation, and she basically just downplays it and she blames him, and she's like, I don't know why he would say that, like, we're
Yeah.
just talking about it amongst each other, but it's not a big deal anyway. He just blew away out of proportion, when it's like, you're talking about my body.
Right.
In regards to AD, if you looked at her face, she looked like, girl, what are you talking
Like,
about?
why would
Like,
you even joke like that about him basically essaying her?
yes.
That's crazy. Wait,
Sorry.
you're good.
Thanks. Get me, girl. But yeah, like, why would you even joke about it? Like,
Yeah.
referencing my body. First of all, I feel like a lot of the cast are like overly sexualizing her, but she kind of
Yeah.
playing into it too.
Yeah.
But it's weird for you to be talking about that to your fiance,
Yeah.
and then for him to say it out loud was like, come on.
You're like, you didn't have self-awareness either to not say that out loud.
And then she didn't have empathy for AD because she was trying to tell her, well, I didn't like that, and neither did my fiance. And she was just still brushing it off. She's like, it wasn't a big deal. I don't understand why he even say that. Like, it was amongst us. Like, it was a joke, clearly.
Yeah.
And like, just because you make a joke about something doesn't mean make it right.
It really doesn't. And the fact that she went back to the room and was like, why would you throw me under the bus? Like, she was getting all upset. Ma'am, that was your own fault.
Yeah.
Wait. The crazy part was, I understand they've been in the pods for whatever time, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you really don't know this man.
Right.
So the fact that you got, like, you just let that out, like, I don't know. It's a mess.
Yeah. I think they do feel like they know each other because they talk. I think they talked to each other for 10 days or something like that.
Yeah, it's
They
say it's for hours. But
yeah, I can imagine when you're talking to someone for hours, you feel like you really know them. And then there's just certain people that, like, when you meet them, you automatically get super comfortable with them enough to just kind of like be yourself. But I feel like with this, like, she was embarrassed, but instead of her just owning up to it and saying, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have made it, that was a bad joke, and I apologize for him, saying that in front of your fiance, I can imagine like how embarrassing that is for you.
Clean it up, man.
Clean it up.
Clean it up.
She just didn't. She didn't care. The only thing she cared about was like herself, like you said, selfish,
very selfish,
backpedaling. She had no
gaslighting.
She had no empathy. And then she couldn't regulate herself. She just couldn't let it go. She was just going on and on and on, where she couldn't be aware of how it was affecting everybody else that was sitting there. Like, Clay was uncomfortable. The guy who said it, Jeremy, was uncomfortable. AD was uncomfortable. The other girl who was listening to the conversation, I forget who was sitting there. Everybody was uncomfortable.
Everybody got stiff. Everybody got awkward. And like you just said too, another big thing about emotional intelligence is self-regulating.
Yeah.
And she was all over the place. She was not able to self-regulate. But something I think is interesting when it comes to self-regulating for emotional intelligence?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like none of the cast has kids.
Yeah.
And I feel like
except for, she's not in the casting. Yeah.
I feel like if you don't have kids, you don't understand the depths of self-regulation.
Yes, that is when you're truly put to the test.
Yeah, because kids have no self-regulation. You have to teach it to them.
Yeah, and you have to model it.
Yeah, and you have to model it.
That is the hardest part, is modeling, because you can tell your kids, we all know, you can tell your kids all day, but they are going to respond the way you respond sometimes.
Right.
And if you respond with yelling and like being out of control, that's the way your kids are going to be.
Yeah. And so I also take that into consideration for the cast, because they really, they really don't understand the depths of self-regulating.
Yeah.
And most of the cast is pretty young too.
Yeah.
But I also think that AD does a good job of self-regulating.
Yeah.
Because Clay,
the things that come out of that boy's mouth, I'm just like, but it's all over her face, but she does do a good job of like not, I believe that she thinks about what she says before she says it, because 100%. You can just see her brain going, like in the clips where she's just kind of like
and then her lashes be all,
her eyebrows, them lips, she be like, boy, what are you talking about? Like,
and she does a good job of like re-saying what he says,
yeah,
but in a question form,
right,
and gives him the opportunity to like acknowledge, wait, what did I just say?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like she
Yeah.
does, I feel like she does such a good job of self-regulating.
Yeah.
Even when she sat down with Clay's mom and sister,
Yes.
and when
Yes.
she took that shawl off,
Okay, because she got a little hot.
she got a little
She
hot.
she was
She was
cold
like,
at first, and then the mom was taking his side, and she's like,
yeah.
"Wait a minute."
Wait a minute, let me take this. The energy is off.
So
The
what you're
energy is
saying?
shifting. But then the clip, then she had it back on. I was like, oh, y'all did a little bit of editing.
They
They did a
did,
little bit of
yeah,
editing.
yeah, and I think Clay for sure lacks some self awareness,
Oh
and
yeah,
it's interesting because he seems to be an intelligent guy,
yeah.
like just as far as like his career and things like
Mm.
that. But even I was surprised by his home,
Mm.
like, but then him having the TV on the floor and like all the other stuff on the floor, and he said he's been there for 2 years. I was like, okay, here it is. But
Yeah,
like when you first walk in, it's like, okay, I
yeah.
didn't expect that. But I feel like as far as like a lot of the things that comes out of his mouth are like, did you really just say that? Like,
But I do feel like he is being honest in his sense of like,
yeah.
I've grown a lot in this process. Like I have like I'm growing.
Okay, but do you think that's genuine, or you think he's saying that to convince us that he's growing? Because he was like, yeah, yeah, I cried. I
I
ain't,
could too.
I haven't cried in a long time. And I cried and everything. You know what I'm saying?
and
Like,
and that, what was his name? Was it not Jeremy, but Jimmy did say like before he goes in, he would lock in like
yeah,
game time,
that's true.
like
Yeah,
let me lock in for game time.
yeah. And he did help out
So
with that, where he was saying he does kind of get in his head about stuff, and like, and it's funny because when I first started watching it, I like made a post on my Instagram. I'm like, is this real? Like when he was like crying and stuff, I'm like, I don't know if I should. I don't think I should be laughing at this because I don't know if it's real or not. But with him, I can't tell if he's being genuine. I feel like he's like, I don't know. It's tough because
yeah,
just me being me, I feel like he's acting a little bit,
yeah,
but I want to believe that he is really like trying to like turn a leaf, but it's just the way he says certain things that make
yeah.
me feel like he's trying to say the right things.
Like he's trying to stay on the show
Yeah,
because
exactly.
TikTok was on the vision board.
Okay.
TikTok was on the vision board.
Okay. I'm like, bruh, what's really good? Like, I don't know. I feel like she's trying. But I also heard some tea that if you are on the show and you don't make it to the altar, you have to pay like a 50K fine or something like that. There's like a big fine if you quit the show without making it to the altar.
Oh, really?
Whether you say yes or no, you still need to be there on wedding day.
Oh, so they Kenneth and Brittany.
Well, we don't know if they
We
stay
don't
or
know.
not.
Oh yeah, we
You-
really don't know.
We
Yeah,
won't,
yeah, yeah. Because
yeah.
the way this show works, once they do that big group meeting, they might be like, "Let's give it another try." And I'm really upset that the big group meeting has not happened because it usually happens earlier in the season,
Right, right.
and
But
they're really holding off on this big group meeting.
yeah, yeah,
They're really,
yeah.
they're really holding off on it.
But I feel like they kind of split up the season a little differently this time. I feel like we got more
Yeah,
episodes in the first like two groups, but
yeah, but that's because they didn't have to do as much editing because
that's
last
true.
season was shorter.
That's true.
But yeah, I'm just waiting for this group meeting.
So what about Kenneth and Brittany? So we kind of talked about a little bit earlier how Brittany might be an example of actual emotional
Right.
intelligence.
She is a really good example of emotional intelligence. And I feel like she was able to show, like she gave him grace.
Yeah.
Like she gave Kenneth a lot of grace. She gave him the opportunity, even in the breakup, like she gave him the opportunity to be like, we're in this together. Like we can obviously feel that we're not feeling each other.
Right.
And he was just like gaslighting
He
her.
didn't want to take no
No,
accountability like
none.
for how he was acting. He was like, I'm into you. I mean, you speak for yourself.
Yeah.
Like,
Like,
bro,
sir, you're on your phone
you're
all day.
like, in that, even before that, on the little trip or whatever, when
Yeah.
they were sitting on that boat,
Mm,
it was so awkward. Like
so
the only
awkward.
thing you have to talk about is the dolphin. Was it dolphins or whales?
I
The
don't know.
whales. The whales.
Yeah.
I'm like, you can't find anything else to say to her. Like it was so dead
Mm-mm.
silent. Like it got really strange.
Okay.
I feel like from the moment he saw her,
The moment he saw her.
he was like, I think he knew from her voice that she was a white girl,
Right.
but I think he was expecting a different kind of white girl
Oh.
because he had to
Yeah.
know she was white when
Yeah,
he
he
picked
knew. I
her.
think he thought like I could do this.
Yeah.
And then once he saw her, he was like, I can't.
And she's super bubbly and like
And she's
she's
so
like she's
nice.
really
She's
nice.
really nice. Like,
Yeah.
I don't understand how he became so cold to someone who was so nice.
Yeah, and I think she thought that they were on the same page,
Hmm.
but like he did switch up on her when they like met
Yeah, he did.
or when they got I would really say when they got back home, he really
Yeah.
switched up on her.
I feel like in the show, there's always one couple that switches up because there was one last year too. Remember that guy that got mad at that girl for wearing makeup? There's
Yeah.
always one.
Like what is wrong with you?
There's always one.
Yeah, but anyways, so now we're gonna kind of like break it down for you guys. We're gonna jump into the key elements of emotional intelligence. We briefly talked about what it is, but it's basically just being in touch with your feelings.
Hmm.
It's also about how you navigate and express those emotions within a relationship.
Right.
So, you know, when you're in a relationship, you not only have to worry about yourself, you have to worry about the other person as well. How are the things that I'm going to say affect them?
Right.
How is my attitude going to affect them? You don't think about how your actions will affect, or you don't care
Right.
about how your actions will affect your other person. It's like, well, this is just how I am. I've been like this. You knew I was like this when you met me and blah, blah, blah. But it's like when you really care about somebody, you should also care about how your actions affect them.
100%. And you have to be aware that the mood that they are in may not be a good time to have the conversation that you want to have.
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, if you really want that conversation and that communication to go well,
Hmm.
you have to be aware of the state the other person is in.
Yeah. You got to consider it.
Yeah, you have to be able to consider it and consider the state that you're in.
Yeah.
Because if you're in defensive mode and you try to bring up a tough conversation, it's not going to go well because you're not suited up ready for the conversation, especially if you're not self-aware. I feel like some people don't realize their own personal triggers.
Yeah.
And when you start, even if you start off being in a good, like, even if you start off the conversation and you're in a good mental space
Hmm.
and the other person is in a good mental space,
Hmm.
you could be having that good conversation and something can just trigger you within the
Yeah.
conversation and you can become defensive
Right.
and the whole conversation can just go to hell.
Right.
Okay.
And if you don't know what your triggers are, you don't even
Yeah.
realize it's happening while it's happening in real time.
Right.
And then your person is kind of looking at you like, what switched?
Like, I thought we were having a conversation here.
And if they say something that kind of like makes you feel like it's invalidating or what your
Mm-hmm.
opinion doesn't matter or
Mm-hmm.
something like that, if that's your trigger,
Yeah.
you're going to go all the way left.
Yeah.
So it's important to be aware of what those triggers are so that you can communicate those to your partner and allow them to understand you better. Like that's the whole part when you are in a relationship. The whole process is learning to understand each other
Mm-hmm.
from their point of view and learning how to adapt to the situations when you're in those conversations and situations.
Right. And I think it also comes into play when you realize sometimes you're having a conversation with someone and you're having two different conversations.
Yeah.
I saw that this is I'm not even this is a curve to the left, but there was a video of uh T-Rail and Kylie Jenner's best friend, and they were on a
Okay.
podcast,
Uh-huh.
and they were just saying, she was like, I struggled to start this business. I
Oh,
struggled.
Heather Sanders.
Heather Sanders, yeah. She was like, I struggled to start this business. I struggled, and he was like, she was like, you weren't giving me racks to start this business, and he was just like, she was like, he was like, you were working. What are you talking about? You were working at the Cheesecake Factory, and she was like, I didn't have a car, and he was like, the Cheesecake Factory was across the street. You walked there. You
Right.
chose to work there. And
Yeah.
she was trying to feel validated that, like, okay, I had all these things, but I still had to work really hard. And he was like, I wouldn't call that struggle.
Because struggle looks different to him.
Struggle looks different to him.
He's like, you still had a
You
job.
still had a
You
job.
had a home.
Yeah.
And your job was conveniently across the street.
Right.
You didn't really need a car. It wasn't like you were taking the bus.
Right.
So struggle looked completely different for him because he probably grew up a different way.
Yes, completely different way. And so it was interesting to see them have this back and forth, and she just wanted to feel validated.
Yeah.
And he was just like, where's the struggle? And I watched their YouTube, so I
Uh-huh.
know that he bought her first 3 cars,
Yeah.
and he invested a lot in the business. I ran into them once; they were super nice.
No, not wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
It's just
yeah,
lack of understanding,
yeah,
and it's sometimes it's hard to understand where someone is coming from
right.
when that's not your reality.
Hmm.
And when you're in a relationship with someone, a lot of times we say, well, it's not my job to teach people. Da, da, da. When you're in a relationship with someone,
Yeah,
it is your job.
it really is.
It is your job to be open and honest with your partner about who you are, where you come from,
Hmm.
what your triggers are, what makes you upset, what makes you happy, what brings you joy. It is not your partner's responsibility to figure those things out.
It really
How will
isn't.
they ever know if you don't teach them?
And you're always changing,
Constantly
constantly
changing.
changing. So there's no way for them to even, especially when you bring kids in the mix, there's no
Right.
way for them to just actively know everything that you're
About you.
into.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, you
it's
have
just
to
not
talk
possible.
about it. You have to continue to keep each other up to date on, how you're feeling. And that can come through like just having regular conversations. Like I know my husband and I, we talk about everything.
Hmm.
And one thing that when I met my husband, I told him, we kind of talked about like what we wanted and things like that. And I said,
Yeah.
I want to be married to my best friend. Like
Hmm.
I want to have a partner who I can talk to about anything,
Right.
that they're the first person I want to call. They're the first person that I run to for everything. Like,
Yeah.
regardless of who else I have in my life. And that's something that we built because we both
Right.
had the desire to do that.
Right.
And it helped us to really get to know each other
Mm-hmm.
and who we are, what our triggers are, what our desires are, what makes us happy. And
Hmm.
when you know those things about your person, it's easier for you to practice that emotional intelligence.
Yeah, because you're able to effectively communicate.
Yeah.
Because I feel like communication is something that's always gets thrown into the mix, or
Yeah.
always gets like, you have to be able to communicate this,
But
but
what does that look like?
yeah, what does that look like? And it takes a lot of practice too.
It
It takes a
does.
lot of practice, and I think people underestimate how much you have to actually talk to the person
And
and
listen,
listen.
active listening.
Yeah, active listening. And you know what? Something is when you start to learn your partner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something that I had to do was I started to realize that my partner just seeing my phone
Mm-hmm.
was a trigger,
Mm.
because earlier in our relationship, I did a lot of social media.
Mm-hmm.
So just seeing my phone nearby,
He's like, "Ugh,
he'd be like, that any second she could pick up that phone. So now what I do is I kind of like, if he starts to talk, I'll just like throw my phone.
I love it."
And it's able for him to just open up and be like, she threw her phone. So now he just starts
Yeah,
to just be able to open up and be able
right.
to just
He's not worried
spill.
about you coming to pick it up or let me send this text real quick or let me
Right.
whatever. Yeah.
Or an email come in, or a work, because people
Yeah.
just think they can just email you for work
They
any
just
time of
think
the
they got
day.
so much
Just so much
access.
access. Oh my god. I can only call a client on my personal phone number. Oh my god. They hit me with a happy Thanksgiving.
Oh, wow.
Happy Christmas. Girl.
Not happy Christmas.
Oh.
But yeah, being self-aware allows you to be able to communicate,
Yeah.
properly what your needs, what your boundaries are.
Yeah.
Boundaries are a really big thing, even in relationship. Some people say, well, there's no boundaries in relationship. I believe there could be boundaries in a
Yeah.
relationship because if I tell you that this is a trigger for me,
Right.
that's a boundary.
Exactly.
And until I work through that trigger, some triggers may never go away.
Yeah.
And we all have certain things. Like nobody is perfect. We all have things that we're constantly working on. But if I come to you as your partner and tell
Mm-hmm.
you that this is a trigger for me, that's a boundary.
Yeah.
So if you choose to cross that boundary just to get under my skin, then, you know, reap the consequences of like
Yeah.
of what that is. But like when you're self-aware and you know these things, it's okay for you to communicate. It's important for you to communicate that to your partner.
Yeah.
Like, and like I said before, like not just the bad things, but what makes you happy, what
Mm-hmm.
do you enjoy? Because I feel
There's
like,
good triggers.
yeah,
Yeah.
like if you randomly bring me flowers, that is gonna make my whole day. Like, so your partner, as my partner, you should know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if I'm on the phone and I'm telling you, I saw this TikTok, it was so funny, where she knew her husband was listening and she set up the camera,
Mhm.
but she was like, yeah, because my man, he pays attention
Oh,
to
yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And like, yeah. And so, like, if I tell him I had a really bad day or something, he'll randomly bring me flowers and chocolate. And, like today, I had a terrible day,
Right.
so, and he knows that, when I have a bad day like this, he's going to bring me flowers and chocolates and all these things. And so he creeped back out the house and went and got everything and brought it back.
Yeah, and he came. And the funny thing about that is he came back loud too.
Yeah, hey, babe.
Yeah, because when he first came in, he came in quiet in hearing
Yeah.
the conversation. So before he could even say hello, she started doing her rant. Right?
Yeah. Well, he did say he did call her when he first came in, but
It was
she
low.
act like she didn't hear.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. She acted like she didn't hear. But when
Yeah.
he came back that second, hey
Yeah,
baby,
yeah. He was proud. He was like, yeah, I got you this, I got you that. And
Yeah.
it's like, sometimes I feel like with men, they do need you to just tell them exactly what you want.
Oh, for sure.
And it does still make them feel good to present that to you.
Yeah.
But ladies, if you're still expecting for them, we've said this 100 times. So if you
Right.
haven't got it by now, then you just don't want to.
Right.
But if you're still expecting them to read your mind, you're just setting yourself up for failure and
Right.
disappointment.
Every time. Every time.
Communicate what you want, what you like, what you need. I heard I think, did we talk about this last time about a lady was saying that for just in general, she has a running Amazon wish list
Oh.
of like things that she likes. Whenever she sees something that she likes, she puts it on there. It doesn't have to necessarily be Amazon. It's just like a wish list.
Right.
And they both have access to each other's wish lists. So for birthdays, Valentine's Day, anniversary, you can pick anything from the wish list.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So this is how she shows her husband like things that she wants without being so blatant about it. She doesn't
Yeah.
know what she's going to get off the list,
Mm.
but at least he has a clear understanding of things that she likes. So he doesn't have to worry about her not liking it and being disappointed in it and wanting to take it back.
I love that.
And then she gets something that she wants, vice versa.
I love that.
Me too. I was like, I'm gonna do that. My
Yeah.
husband, he does really good at he listens. So if I say like, and I
You gotta
know,
be careful around him. He
Yes.
like a phone. If
He
hear
is.
it,
He
gonna
gonna get
add
it.
the cart.
Literally. I said one time, oh, my favorite artist is he knows my favorite artist is Eric Bellinger, and he came out with a vinyl
Right.
for one album. And I said, I would literally get a record player just to listen to his vinyl. What's under the Christmas tree? A record player.
He
But-
was like noted.
But he loves giving gifts. So he
I love
pays
that.
attention to like if I say something or whatever. With him, it's really hard because he'll say something and then he'll buy it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm definitely gonna steal that whole wish list idea because it's so hard to buy gifts for men.
It really is.
Like
It really
it's
is.
so hard.
Yeah. It really is hard to buy
Especially
gifts
if
for
they're
men.
not into one specific thing. Like
Yeah.
if he was into model cars or if he was into vinyls, for instance,
Yeah.
that would be easy.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. That's why we tend to do experiences.
I like that too.
Yeah, we tend to do experiences. But yeah, that's tough. But you know what? By being more self-aware and by being more emotionally intelligent, you're able to really deepen your connection.
Yeah.
You're able to really like get on a new level. Like
Mhm.
something my husband and I were talking about the other day is we're approaching I think it's a lot of years. It was
15?
18 something.
Oh, together.
I don't know if I don't know if it's 18 together. Yeah, it might be 18 together. Something like it's something. It's
'Cause
getting close to 20.
I think married, you guys are like 15, right?
Yeah,
I wanna say.
It's something like that.
Yeah.
It's something like that. And
Mhm.
so reaching 2 decades of knowing each other,
Mhm.
it's kind of interesting how your relationship like gets deeper.
Mhm.
Like how every year, like when you just sit down and think about it, like how your connection
Mhm.
gets deeper. But I think it really does come from being more aware of your significant other. And I
Mhm.
think that's why people are often like, you just got to get through the hard times. Like you just have
Yeah.
to push through.
Yeah.
Because if you're able to push through,
Mhm.
like the way my spouse and I fight now or argue, because not fight,
Not-
but like
yeah.
argue or have disagreements, is just completely
And it's a
different.
lot quicker.
Yeah, it's a lot quicker.
It's a lot quicker.
It's a lot quicker.
Yeah, because you've already learned each other's triggers. It's a conscious decision though, because
yeah, it really is.
I feel
It
like
really is.
in an immature relationship,
Yeah.
when you fight or argue, you are trying to go for the jugular.
Right.
Like you are trying to go below the belt. You're trying to
Mhm.
hit them where it hurts. But when you're in a mature relationship and you really want to seek like solution,
Right.
you don't do that.
No. When
We're
you're
trying to get to the bottom of it
Yeah.
as quickly as possible so
Yeah.
we can move forward. Like we're not here to
We
fight
got too
with
much
each.
to lose too.
Yeah,
We got
way too much
way
to
too much to
lose.
lose.
Way too much to lose.
That's
And
why Beyonce didn't let Jay-Z go.
yeah, I'm not trying to hurt you. We on the same team, but I need you to understand me.
Yes.
And that's when all these characteristics come into play, especially self-regulation.
Self-regulation. And you know what? The crazy thing about self-regulation is like it is hard.
It
Like
is.
it's a different, especially with kids. It's just a different level of self-regulating. It's just,
Yeah.
and then even like with like kids when it comes to like their teachers,
Mm.
because every year is a different teacher,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't want to catch a stray, or you don't want to shoot them astray
Mm-hmm.
when maybe you can't always be on the same place with the teacher.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And that's why I think it's just so important to just teach those skills,
Yeah.
regardless of who the person is.
Yeah.
I teach Kendon like just to always show love, be respectful. If someone is disrespecting you, you can stand up for yourself, but
Right.
respectfully.
Right.
Like, you don't hit below the belt. If you need to remove yourself, if they're getting you so upset that you are no longer going to be respectful, you need to remove yourself,
Yeah.
especially if it's an adult.
Yeah.
And if it's an adult and they are being disrespectful to you, you come get your parent.
Right. But these teachers, Lord.
Yeah,
These teachers,
you
these
tell
teachers.
mommy and daddy everything,
Mm.
but you don't be disrespectful because you're the one who's going to get in trouble.
See, my thing with the teachers is like teachers, I feel like they do things, and when your child comes back and tells you, your child doesn't realize. Like teachers will play favorites, or teachers will like, you're in the classroom, right? We have a child in our classroom that is on the spectrum, right?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes she does things, and I'm just like
The teacher.
right? And I understand like it's a lot of patience,
Mm-hmm.
and he has like sometimes he has an extra person in the classroom,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes he doesn't. But sometimes the way the other parents come in there and volunteer, or the way she speaks to him,
Mm-hmm.
I just want to be like, if his mom was here right now, you would not talk to this child like this right now.
Wow.
And the other day, my child comes home. She picks a student of the day. She picks a student helper every day.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what, mom? So and so got to be the student helper today. And I'm like, oh, okay. It's his first time. The first time.
And we've been in school for over 100 days.
You just had the 100 days, and I was just like so livid. Because I volunteer in the classroom. I was so livid because teachers make me have to self-regulate. The way I almost went off on this teacher.
Oh my god.
The way I just wanted to go off on this teacher, and I want to tell his mom so bad, but I feel like I cannot do that.
You don't want to put red flags on you, but
yeah,
I don't know. I'll be speaking up in the class, but we have been blessed to have good teachers.
Yeah.
But it's not.
It's a good teacher, but she don't have no kids, and she needs to self-regulate.
Yeah, it is hard. It is harder for them that don't have kids, because I will say that my son's teacher, sometimes I hear her get very stern with the kids as well, and I'm like, girl, you can't say that.
You cannot say that.
She was like, you need to, she's like, no, that is not okay. She like raises her voice a little bit. She's like, no, that is not okay. We're not doing that. Put the pencil down.
Yeah.
And as a mom, like if I was talking to my own child, okay, cool. But you can't be talking to other people's kids like that, because you don't know how what their self-regulations are, or like their emotions, or you just don't know, like if someone talks to them at home, it could be a trigger for them, like and so.
And you know what's hard about that is teachers that talk like that, or I understand why they have to be stern.
Yeah,
I get why they have to be stern.
Yeah, because some of them kids is just BAD. Yeah. And when she be saying that to little so and so, I'd be like, he need to hear that, because his parents don't be saying that to him.
Yeah. So they have a hard job. I get it. They do have a really hard job, but something about self-regulating is like when your child is learning how to self-regulate and they're really trying hard. Something I notice is like once they get in the car, they just kind of like have that emotional like
Release.
release of just like, well, this is about this, and then they're just kind of like all over the place. And I
Mhm.
tried to do my best to just give my kid that space. Like,
Mhm.
you just got out of class. I
Mhm.
understand you like you're tense. You have your emotions all over the place. Like,
Mhm.
give yourself a second. Like, it's okay. Like, I let them know like you're feeling like a lot of different emotions right
Yeah.
now.
Mhm.
Like, and I'm gonna give you that space for that.
Yeah.
We weren't supposed to even go there,
I
but
know
here
we
we are.
talking about
Sorry.
kids, child. We supposed to be talking about relationships.
Relationship. Look, that's the relationship you have with your child.
Really quick, a tool because we're going to be giving you guys tools throughout as well. But another tool for the self awareness before we keep moving forward.
Yeah.
For self awareness is journaling and is intentionally spending that time with yourself. Writing down your feelings and emotions, like what happened in the day, and then you can go back and read it. Like, dang, I kind of acted a fool today,
Yeah.
Like if you're honest with yourself. And I think honesty is the only way to learn to be self-aware is to really be honest and take a good look in the mirror and listen to the people around you. If the people that love and care about you are
Yeah.
all saying the same thing, they're probably not making it up,
Yeah.
especially people that have known you your whole life, or if they're honest with you. It is hard to find people who can be honest with you, especially if you're a person who flies off the handles, or if you are, you lack that self-regulation. Sometimes people just don't want to deal with it, so they just let you be who you are, and they
Right.
say like, that's just how they are,
Yeah.
or they won't invite you certain places because you cut up.
Right.
But if you really want to grow, especially in your relationship, you need to be honest with yourself first.
Yeah.
Allow others to be honest with you without being completely defensive. It's hard to hear, tough
Yeah.
things sometimes. And
You really can't do any of the other stuff if you don't have self awareness.
no,
Like self awareness is the
yeah,
number one thing.
for in life in general, in any
Yeah.
relationship, like when you're working
Mm-hmm.
with your children, with your partner, with people in the grocery store, like if you are just out here living and don't care about how you affect the people around you, that's just not a good place to be, and it's going to be very hard for you to grow in any capacity. So
Yeah. And it doesn't stop. Like I feel like when I was younger, I did a lot of personal work,
mhm.
and then you don't stop that personal work.
No, uh-uh.
You have to keep learning about yourself, and you have to keep practicing being honest
Mhm.
with yourself, because the hardest conversation you could ever have is with yourself,
Yeah.
and you might as well be honest to yourself.
Yeah, and it takes constant effort, because even
Yeah.
like going back to parenting, it's hard not to, because we got these kids.
Yeah.
And so um just being aware, like sometimes I'm not perfect, so I may have a really hard day and I might raise my voice,
Right.
and immediately I'll be like, mommy is sorry, I did
Yeah.
not mean to talk to you that way, that is not okay.
Right.
I don't like when you raise your voice to me, so it's not okay for me to raise my voice to you. Let's sit down and have a conversation. And then so I have to pull back.
Yeah.
I have to be aware of what just happened, and I have to regulate myself and my emotions and have a conversation with my child, because a lot of parenting, like we talked about, is modeling.
Right.
And I want my sons to be able to communicate their emotions, how they feel, in a very respectful manner. I don't want them to feel like they have to raise their voice to get their point across for every
Right.
little thing.
Right.
Now sometimes you do have to speak up in life because
You do.
people don't hear you.
Right.
But for small things, for things that, like, because in moments like that, it's not really what the child did. It may be the weight of the day. Things have happened back to back. I'm tired. I haven't gotten any rest. I have a laundry list of things to do. And I done told you 4 times to go take your socks and put them in a laundry basket.
Exactly.
And you just constantly, every day, you come in here and you take your socks off right by the door. And we go over this every day. And so I'm fed up today because I had a long day. But that's not it's tough.
It's tough.
Because you're old enough to be responsible enough to do what I asked you to do without me having to tell you every single day.
Exactly.
But does that warrant me going off the handles? No.
Yeah, that's the self-regulating part.
It
That's the
is.
self-regulating part, to
It's
be like,
tough.
I can't go off the handles about that.
Yeah, and because it's managing your emotions
Mm-hmm.
during conflict and challenging situations. How you respond to any situation is going to determine the outcome.
Exactly.
If you respond in a way that is peaceful and that is directed towards a solution, you're more likely to get a solution.
Right.
If you respond in a way that is offensive, then the other person's going to get offended and you're
Right.
not going to get anywhere.
Nowhere. Okay. Speaking of offensive, wait, Jimmy told Chelsea, I didn't really want to sleep with you.
Oh, yeah. That came out of nowhere. It was like, John, we had a baby. It's a boy. Like, he just
Yeah.
blurted it out
He
like,
was like, she was like, and I even slept with you last night. And he was
I don't want to
like,
sleep with you anyway.
girl, I didn't want none of that. I was tired.
I was
I
like,
was,
oh my
I got so
God.
embarrassed for her. I got
Yeah.
so embarrassed. And she was instantly offended because he said something that was very offensive.
And she was over here bragging about him and his peen and all this.
And come to find out,
Child.
it's and I okay, quickly. I think that Chelsea is sleeping with him and doing all this extra stuff and being super clingy, not just because Jimmy says that he likes that. Wait, hold on. Not because Jimmy said he likes that, but because she knows Jess is around the corner.
Yes.
And Jess is a little baddie.
She is.
She's a little baddie. And Chelsea, with that Megan Fox lie.
Now, here's what I want to say about that really quickly. She never said she looked like her, and people are acting
I know
like
we took it
she.
far. Everybody took jumped off the cliff with
Yeah,
it.
they
We
acting
all
like
jumped
she
off
stood
the
up
cliff
there and
because
said.
nobody felt that she should put her name anywhere near Megan Fox. That's what the people felt.
But when you look at the photos,
The eyes and the dark hair. But
from this part up,
her friends,
if you cut off this part right here,
her friends,
she kind of looked like
was like, oh yeah,
the country girl. The what's the girl they said?
Oh yeah. Oh, I can't
I
think.
can't think of her name either, but
I
they
can
said
see
somebody. Carrie Underwood.
Girl, you look like Carrie Underwood.
Oh my gosh, I saw this TikTok and the guy was like, it was been a lot of TikToks of wives like letting their husband watch and getting their responses, and the guy was like, I was gonna say she looked like Adele.
Oh gosh.
He was so funny.
Ooh,
I gotta find their page again when the new episodes come out because he was hilarious.
Oh, okay. Send it to me because yeah, Chelsea, and then the previews is Chelsea cuddling up to Trevor.
So here's the thing. So people are saying, sorry y'all, we going back and forth. Okay, so people are saying that the only reason why Chelsea really picked Jimmy was because he was a hot commodity. Because she told her friends immediately, like, yeah, everybody wanted him and he chose me.
All the wrong reasons.
Yeah. And it's like, then you go sit at the table and tell Trevor you love him and all this stuff. Like, girl, come on.
Girl.
Anyway, back to emotional intelligence.
Because clearly the cast of Love is Blind don't have it, okay?
So yeah, in self-regulation, we talked about, how you respond makes a difference. So some tips for that, for self-regulation is deep breathing, mindfulness, taking time out to cool off when tension arises. Like they kind of go hand in hand. If you are aware of yourself and when you feel yourself shifting, that's when you need to change something in either in your position. If you're standing up, maybe you need to sit down. If you're sitting down, maybe you need to stand up and walk away. Try not to be rude about it. Just say, give me a minute.
Right.
Sometimes people are not respectful of those tools either. And so you have to make a choice to say, if this is getting too far, I need to remove myself from the situation. If you can't handle it, that is up to you. Nobody can stop you from removing yourself from a situation. If you choose to stay and engage, then it's on you.
And sometimes you got to send people a hint. Like if you can't quite get the words out, I know when I first had to like start self-regulating in my relationship, I would do one of these. Like he could see. Just taking a breath. So he can see like, oh wait, hold on. Like I'm saying something that is obviously starting to cause her to be like tense.
Yeah.
I would just be like, okay, let me just take a breath. Like, so that he can visually see, I'm about to lit this on fire. Hold up, sir. Hold it up, sir. Okay.
Right.
Because I do feel like deep breathing is a very underestimated like
Tool.
technique. Like
Yeah.
it's a tool that's very underestimated. Some people just, oh, just take a breath, but when you really take a deep breath, or you
Yeah.
really take like even just 5 to 10 breaths,
Yeah.
it's really a game changer.
It does. And then like I don't know if you guys what is this on my watch? But yeah, on your Apple Watch, it'll remind you of, mindfulness. And when it says take time for
Mm.
mindfulness, it'll tell you, take 5 deep breaths, whatever you're feeling right now, and it'll give you like instructions on what to do to like regulate yourself. And I don't know if the watch does it when it feels you getting anxious or tense.
Oh. Or your
Um
heart rate
or
goes
your
up.
heart rate goes up,
Yeah.
it'll say practice mindfulness.
Mm.
And it's just a minute and of deep breathing,
Mm.
and it shows you like this little like image on your watch, and it really do help because I have used it before.
I rarely wear a watch, so
Yeah, I have definitely used it. Another element is empathy. We talked about this before when we were
yeah,
talking about the couples. Like, I mean, that's self-explanatory. When you are in a relationship, you need to be empathetic.
you really do.
Like, you need to feel what your partner is feeling, and take it into consideration, and don't just brush it off and just be like, oh, whatever, that's how you feel, like it ain't got nothing to do with me. Actually it does.
Like actually has a lot to do with you. And I feel like on Love is Blind, Brittany really showed she had, even though he was having really bad self-awareness, even though he was totally gaslighting her,
Yeah,
he had no empathy at all. And she
she
did
still
such,
did.
yeah, she still had empathy for him.
She validated his feelings, she
Yeah.
heard him out.
Yeah, even though he did none of that back to
No.
her. I can't imagine where he is watching that right now, because to look that bad on screen where you didn't show somebody any empathy is just wild. But also empathy is understanding that like you might communicate with someone,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to be able to be aware that they can't quite see it how you
You see
see it.
it.
Like
Yeah.
you have an experience that maybe you've experienced more in an area,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe you have just experienced more really,
Yeah.
that they can't quite see. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Or they're in a place where they can't see it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, even though you can lead, they say, even though you can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink it.
Right.
So it's kind of giving that person the space to say, like, it,
Even if you don't
feel
get
like,
it, even if you don't understand,
yeah,
you still have to give them that space to go through their process
yeah,
and be there for them.
yeah,
Like, we're not always going to understand like where our partner is coming from,
right,
because we've lived different lives and our stories are different, and you know we are ever changing, we're always constantly growing. There's things that we are still working on, healing from the past and
yeah,
things like that. And so in any given situation, a person can, there goes that word again, be triggered,
yes, most definitely,
and you need to be empathetic to what they're going through, especially
yeah,
if you know their story. Like, I
yeah,
never understand people who condemn people for having certain reactions to certain things when you know the trauma that they've been through, and you know that
yeah,
they're still working through that trauma.
yeah,
Like, if you were in that situation, you would want somebody to give you grace.
most
You would
definitely,
want for somebody to be empathetic towards you and try to see your point of view and where you're coming from. So you have to extend that same grace to the people in your life that you love and care about, you know?
I think the hardest time to have empathy is when you're having a tough conversation with someone and they're saying things to you that you really don't want to hear,
Yeah.
or they're saying something to you that you don't quite see it that way.
Yeah.
And you have to instantly ask yourself, like, am I being defensive?
Mm-hmm.
Or, you know, or am I just not like
There's a lack of
understanding?
understanding.
Yeah, am I
Yeah.
having a lack of understanding,
Yeah.
and just giving the situation empathy? Because even though they may be saying something that you don't agree with, or something that hurts your feelings, or something that's about you and how they feel about you,
Mm-hmm.
you still have to give them empathy in a sense of what you're saying is true for you, and I can't invalidate how you feel.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. Just because I don't agree doesn't, invalidate your feelings.
Right.
And it's okay to ask questions. A
Yeah.
way to understand someone better is to just ask questions.
Right.
Sometimes people are not open to questions, and everybody's partner is different. But I always would say, if you don't understand something, ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
And not where it's like badgering them,
Yeah.
but just like to gain understanding. Like,
Yeah.
if they're like, do you feel me? It's like, I don't, be just because I really don't understand like where you're coming from. Can you go a little bit in depth about this part?
Yeah.
Or I really do want to understand you, but I'm just having a hard time understanding. Can you paint the picture for me?
Right.
And hopefully they're willing to do that for you, because sometimes people just need the space to know that it's okay to do that,
Right.
or just to know that you even care.
Right.
Because if you just so deep in the argument, it seems like that you don't care. So why would they go more in depth about how they feel, especially a man?
Right.
Like, it's already pulling teeth to get a man to express like how they feel. So if you're in a space to where you really want to understand that man, you got to bring it back a little bit.
Bring it back.
Try to empathize, tone it down. Like, because when you get in the heat of the moment and voices are raised, and like,
Nobody's
it's
listening.
nobody's
Yeah.
listening. Not at all. And if you really want to get down to the root of it, you need to gain understanding. Like, you need to get up into that mind of his
Is
and see what's going on up there. And you're not gonna get there. He's gonna shut down.
yeah. And I think sometimes you think that when you ask questions, you'll be able to kind of find out like, oh wait, I thought I was trying to help you, or I thought I was trying to
Yeah.
do something. And they're like, I don't like that.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, well, I was just doing that because I thought,
And we get in trouble when we start making suggestions that they didn't ask for, because
yeah,
they feel like you disregard how they feel. Like,
right,
you're not listening to what I'm telling you. You just trying to tell me what you think is better.
right.
And because we do be knowing better
Because
sometimes, but
what we said was right.
exactly. But effective communication is another one.
Mm-hmm.
That I think that's the hardest thing for people, because like, how do you effectively communicate? Like, it looks different for everybody.
It really does look different for everybody. I feel like that is really something that comes along with learning a person.
Yeah.
Like you really have to learn your person.
Yeah.
You really have to understand like how they communicate, and they have to learn how you communicate,
Yeah.
and how you prefer to communicate,
Yeah.
and meeting in the middle. Like it's a lot.
But some tips that you can do is just to be clear,
Yeah.
be honest,
Honest.
and be respectful.
Mm-hmm.
If you can be clear, honest, and respectful, you'll have a better chance at having a good conversation
Right.
than, like we said before, like being defensive and just trying to get your point across, or just trying to make sure you're heard.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's hard to be honest sometimes, because you may not want to hurt that person's feelings or whatever. But listen, if we already here, we down to the nitty gritty, and it's like up or down. Just be honest and be clear. Like, don't be vague about it. Say what you mean and mean what you say. I know that's hard for a lot of people, though.
It really is. It is hard for a lot of people because you realize that you could say something that could just, if that person's not ready to hear it,
Yeah.
it could blow up in your face.
Yeah.
But at some point, and you know what? Another way to effectively communicate is sometimes you just need to, like you said, journal or to write. And like, I know there's been times where I struggled to effectively communicate,
Mm-hmm.
and I just kind of had to put it in written form. Like
Mm.
I could write it better than I could say
Same.
it.
Same.
Yeah. And my husband hates that. And he's like, and you just tell me? I'm like, I can't quite. I need to digest it.
My
and,
husband and I used to text.
Yeah.
Like, we would literally, like, I would go to the car
He's
and be like, let me just
because it takes off the tone.
It does. Well, in some situations, it can enhance the
Yeah,
tone.
because they don't hear the tone.
But if it's like if we were in a heat of an argument or a conversation and we weren't getting anywhere, it's like, let me just get all my thoughts out,
Yeah.
and then you read my thoughts and then you respond. That way I'm not like listening to you and trying to get a response, and then I'm like, dang, I'm gonna forget what I'm gonna say, so then I'm not even listening to you
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
So sometimes, like, taking a step back and writing does help, depending on the people. Like, you have to figure out like what tools work for you. Also, taking ownership, like using I statements, like, I feel this, like, instead of saying like, you hurt me when you said da 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 da, you could say,
one. That's a good one.
I feel this way when these things happen, reflecting on whatever the conversation was or whatever the scenario was. Like,
Yeah.
just kind of like taking ownership of your own feelings, and then giving their the opportunity to do the same, like, back.
Yeah. Ownership is a big one. And also, like, a big changer in a conversation when communicating is to own up to your own stuff fast.
Yeah.
Like, owning up to your own stuff quick. Like, don't let it have to trickle down to owning up to your own stuff. Like, just starting off with, like, I understand I was in a bad mood. I understand, and I know it could have came off like this, that, and the other.
Mm-hmm.
But just owning up that, acknowledging that you played a part
Yes.
is a big game changer.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it allows the other person to open up and be open about how they feel and be able to acknowledge their wrongs as well. Like, where did they mess up?
Yeah. Yeah. Really quickly, because we're running out of time, but the last two are building connection. So that's just like building intimacy, spending time. Like we've been talking about, the whole like theme of this thing is just kind of like really building that connection and building time. And just taking time to understand one another. But building that deeper connection just helps with your relationship overall and helps you just to emotionally connect. So making sure that you are not, because I feel like a lot of times with the hustle and bustle of life, couples just don't spend, we talked about this in the last episode, like couples just don't spend time with each other, and you miss each other because the only time you communicate is in an argument because something went wrong, like, you know, and you're not taking the time to share the plan of what's happening. You're moving in your own pace, he's moving in his own pace, and then when you have to come together because it's something about the kids or about the household, you clash because you've been moving your own way this whole time. You got to build that connection with one another and really like be in tune and locked in.
Very locked in. Something that I use to stay locked in is when we have those conversations at the end of the night, I just stare deep into his soul. Because you think about how much eye contact is everything. Have during the day.
Yeah,
you're moving, you're helping with the kids, you're making dinner. You don't have that much eye contact.
Yeah.
So when we sit there and talk, I just be zoned into his eyes. Like, I just lock into his eyes and I don't move.
And you see that a lot as a tool that they use whenever, like, I watch like a lot of those little couple shows.
Yeah.
They have them like basically sit in each other's lap and stare in each other's eyes for 5 minutes. Or like put your hand on each other's heart so you can hear your heartbeat. Like those things to deepen that like connection, to just be in tune with each other. And like she said, just locking in your eyes.
Like, boom.
Oh my God. If you are struggling with intimacy in your relationship, try that.
Just lock in. They're just talking, you just boom.
And it may start off rough where it's like you may have anger. You may be looking at them like, you know, whatever you're upset about them. But the longer you look, then you might, you know,
I don't know what it is.
It's like a spiritual thing.
It's a spiritual thing.
Yeah, it is a spiritual thing. Yeah.
Once you lock in, and then once you lock in, they just be talking, but just be spilling everything.
Yeah.
Spilling everything.
And then when someone in any conversation or relationship, when you feel like you're being heard,
it makes such a big difference, because 10 times out of 10, they have something that they really want to tell you.
Yeah.
Or you have something that you really want to tell them.
Yeah.
So if you see that your partner is locked in and listening, like at 110%, it's like, oh, I'm being heard. Like, even if there's a chance where there's some misunderstanding, you know you're being heard.
Yep.
You know you're at least being heard by the person.
Absolutely. And just to wrap this up, some key things that you can do, just all in all, is practice patience and forgiveness.
Oh, yeah.
In any relationship, we need to be patient with each other, and we need to forgive, because nobody is perfect.
Nobody.
Rome wasn't built in a day.
At all.
So it's going to take work. It's going to take sacrifice. It's going to take time. But when you are looking to really lock in with your partner and understand them better and want to build that connectivity and like that intimacy, emotional intelligence is what is going to get you there. And it has so many components, like the ones we went over today. We'll have them listed in the show notes so that you guys can like go over, you know, if you want to go back and look and reflect. But like being patient with yourself, being patient with your partner goes a long way.
Such a long way.
And understanding that they're not perfect because you're not perfect.
Yeah.
And, you know, giving each other grace. And this is for a healthy, growing relationship. If you're in a relationship that is just completely toxic and you shouldn't be there in the first place,
none of this is going to matter.
None of this is going to matter.
That's why Brittany you how to get out.
We are not telling you to go and take these tools to somebody who is just like not there.
Not at all.
Like there's a lot of steps that you have to get to first before you get there if a person is not even willing to have a reasonable conversation with you.
Right.
We are not doctors, we are not therapists. We are these are our opinions.
Yes, we're just experienced wives.
Exactly. And these are some things that we have learned along the way that have helped us that we're still learning. Like
Right.
Nicole said earlier, this is like a ever going conversation.
It's
Like
a
this is
journey.
it's a journey. And each day you just work towards building and being a better person. And when you are striving to be a better person within yourself, you're a better person to everyone around you, including your spouse, your
Amen.
partner, your children, your parents, your community, working with them, teachers,
Yes.
and it starts to reflect on your children. So we hope that you guys learned something today. We hope that you guys enjoyed this episode. We will be tuned into Love is Blind this evening. And so
Yes.
we will have more to say. You guys know if you're not new here, you know we talk about Love is Blind every season. That is
Yes,
our
it's
show.
good.
Because we love talking about love and relationships. And this is like I said earlier, like couples like this is just a good case study.
It really is. You get to see it so like loud and clear.
Yeah. Yes. So keep watching. Thank you guys so much for being here. Share with a friend. Listen to it as many times as you like. We are available on YouTube as well, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. So make sure you guys are following us at Somebody's Mama Podcast everywhere and on Instagram at Somebody's Mama Pod. And we will see you guys in the next one. Bye.